Okay, in this video tutorial I'm going to show you how to use Autodesk 123D Design to create your Another World Mars building. Now for this task you're going to need your drawings, so you're going to have your sheet, your design sheet in front of you, and you need to select one of your three final ideas. It's really important that when you're drawing or creating anything in 123D Design that you have some idea of what it is you're doing to begin with. So having a drawing, some kind of sketch in front of you is always good. So once you've opened 123D Design, you're going to start a new project. Obviously here we have the grid, which represents the kind of tabletop or the floor on which we're going to draw. We've got the drawing tools up along the top here. We've got the view tools along the bottom, along the right hand side, and we've also got the view cube, which is at the top right hand corner here, which is going to feature quite prominently in this tutorial. Just make sure that before you start to draw you are in an orthographic view. To change that, you click on the little arrow next to the view cube and select orthographic, not perspective. So you want that to be in orthographic. It will just make viewing the shapes and sketches you're going to draw a little bit easier. So first of all we're going to create the base. So to create the base, we're going to use a sketch and we're going to use the rectangle tool. So we select the rectangle tool. When we bring that onto the screen, nothing will happen. It says click on grid, sketch, or solid face to start sketching. We click on the grid, and now we have our draw tool activated. Now before we start drawing, we're going to view from the top. So we're just going to go to the view cube and click on top. We're still in drawing mode, and then we're going to draw the square for our base. Now the square for the base is going to be 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters, which is 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. Our grid on 123D Design is set to 5 millimeters, which is exactly the same as the grid on your page. So remember, the drawing on your page, on your design sheet, is a scale of 1:1 with the model that's going to be 3D printed. So the drawing on your page is the same size, or should be the same size, as the model that you're going to print. So in this case, I'm going to start my drawing here, where the two darker lines intersect. I'm going to click, and I'm going to pull out my rectangle tool until both measurements at the top and on the left hand side read 50, and then I'm going to click again. Then I'm going to click the green arrow or the green tick to commit that drawing to the page. You must click on the green tick to commit the drawing to the page. If you carry on drawing, it means that whatever you draw from then on will stick to your square. We only want the square. You can check if you wanted to. You can count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. So we've got a square 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters. Now what we want to do is extrude that square by 1 millimeter. Now if we do it in this view, we can't see when we extrude, we can't see that we're extruding it because it will come towards us. So we're going to go back to home view, which is this little house on the view cube, and we go into kind of like a diagonal kind of view. We're looking at this from the corner perspective, looking at this in 3 dimensions. We now want to select the square. So to select the square, remember you put your arrow just inside. Okay, you can see that, not on the line, but just inside the square or the sketch. It will highlight green. You can see the edges glow green, and then click. And it should turn blue, light blue. If it's light blue, it's selected. If it's not, it hasn't been selected, so have another go. By the way, if you have made a mistake with your drawing, if your drawing is the wrong side, your sketch is the wrong size, then obviously you can always click on undo and then have another go. Goes without saying that throughout this tutorial, if you do something that doesn't work or something's wrong, you want to go back a step, you press undo or Control Z. So I've selected my square, I'll click on I'll move to the little cog, the little wheel, and I'm going to move along to extrude. It's the third tool along. Click on that and you should see an arrow appear on the sketch. I can either pull that up, or to be more accurate, I can type in my measurement here, and it needs to be 1 millimeter, and press enter. When I press enter, it commits the extrude, and you can see that I have a square that is now 1 millimeter in or base, which is 1 millimeter in thickness. Please double check that you've got these dimensions correct. So if we go back to top view and zoom out, again we can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 squares by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 10 squares. If you click on the line of the sketch, you can see that the measurements appear as well to tell you 50 by 50. Click anywhere else on the screen to get rid of those measurements. Go back into the home view, and then we're going to pull back up the wheel on the mouse and zoom out, and push down the wheel of the mouse and just pan into the center of the screen. So put yourself in a view that looks something like that. Now, just to make sure that if anything goes wrong, we don't lose that, we're going to go to save. So click on the Autodesk logo and then go to save to my computer. Always a good rule, put your name on it and a description of what it is. So your name and then Mars building would suffice. Okay, we can tell whose it is and what it is. Save it into your technology folder if you have one, or put it somewhere where you're going to remember where it is. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, first thing we're going to do is the more complicated form of the 5 you're going to do. So you need a minimum of 4 forms and a loft. So we're going to do the loft first of all. Now your loft could be any shape and any size. I'm going to create a loft, and then you'll have to try and create something that is the same as the lofted shape that you've designed on your drawing. So I'm going to use a circle for my loft. Again, I need to click on the grid to tell it I'm going to draw on the grid. Now, don't draw anything on top of the base, because if you draw something on the base and you get this wrong, then you could lose your base. You could draw something that becomes part of the base and then have to delete it all. So we're going to draw our shapes, our forms off the base, and then we're going to move them onto the base later on. So I'm going to click on the grid to tell the computer the way I'm going to draw. I'm going to go back into a top view. Now, the size of the shape you're going to draw depends on the size of the shape on your drawing. So you need to look at your drawing, and you'll only have a front view, and you need to find out the width and the height of the shape you're going to draw. It should be easier on the sheet because you've obviously got squares on the sheet. So you should be able to count the number of squares that correspond to the width of the shape. So in my case, it's 4 squares on the grid. Each square is 5 millimeters, so 4 times 5 is 20. So that's 20 millimeters or 2 centimeters. So I'm going to draw a circle, 5, 10 in radius, and you can see that the measurement it gives me is the diameter. So the diameter of the circle I'm going to draw there is 20 millimeters. And then click. On your drawings, you might not be able to tell by looking at the front view what shape your object is, but that's up to you. So if you want your object to be circular, that's fine. If you want it to be rectangular, that's fine as well. It's whatever you prefer. Obviously, for more organic and curved shape, which we're going to draw, then a circle would probably be better. Okay, I'm going to press enter, and enter makes sure that that shape has been drawn. So I shouldn't be able to see any writing on my pointer. That circle is now drawn. I'm going to back into home view. I'm going to select the circle. Remember, to select the circle, you need to go just inside the circle so it glows green, and click. And I'm going to copy and paste it. Control C and Control V on the keyboard. Control C and Control V on the keyboard. That should make a copy of the circle. When I grab the arrow that points up and pull it, I should have a second circle. If you don't have a second circle, it means that you haven't copied and pasted it. You need to put it back, copy and paste it again. Now, the height, the maximum height of a loft that we're going to allow you to do is 40 millimeters, is 8 squares on your grid, 40 millimeters. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move and create the top of my shape. Now I've run out of room there, so I'm going to pan down and move it up. In fact, there you go. So what I'm going to do, look, is I'm going to put the top circle at 40. So the distance between the bottom circle and the top circle is 40. And I'm going to click enter. Then I'm going to select my bottom circle again, copy and paste it, and then I'm going to move it up 20. And obviously you could type in this measurement. So if I type in 20, it will move to 20 and hit enter. Now my bottom circle and my middle circle are 20 millimeters apart. Obviously 20 millimeters is half of 40. So my if I look from the front, you see that my circles are equidistant apart, the same distance apart. It might be that you don't want that to happen, so it might be that you want to move the circle or twist it or shape it. It depends on what shape you want. It's completely up to you. You might put more circles in to create a more complex shape. With this shape, I'm going to make this shape thinner. I'm going to make the circle smaller. So what I'm going to do is select the circle, move to the cog and select scale and push the arrow inwards like that. Check the measurement. I can click on it and you can see that that has a diameter now of 15. I'm happy with that. You could change it if you wanted to. Go back to scale and move it in a little bit more, a little out a little bit. It's completely up to you. Click on the outside when it's done. I could move the circle out. I could twist it. Whatever you would like to do to that to create the loft that you're trying to create. So I'm going to select, to create the loft, I'm going to select the bottom circle. Must hold down the shift on the keyboard. I'm going to select the middle circle and then the top circle. They must be selected in order, bottom to top. And then I'm going to select loft. And then the loft is created. Have a look at that. See if that's what you intended. If it's not, then you can always select the shape just in case you need it, copy and paste it, move it to one side, delete the shape that's there, and then you could edit the circles or the sketches again, change them, do whatever you need to do, select them again, bottom, middle, top, go to loft, and there we have another shape. So you could keep doing that until you get the shape that you want, or you could start to redraw it again. Just to reiterate that this doesn't have to be a circle, it could be a square, it's a complete or a polygon, it's completely up to you. So that's the loft. To finish the loft off, to shape that, I'm going to press E for edge, and I'm going to select the top of the shape, and then I'm going to pull that arrow in. So if I wanted a rounded top or a domed top, E for edge, select the edge of the shape, and then pull it to change. You could type in, but you could pull it to change it, that's fine. You get something like that. So that's how to create the loft. When you're ready to put this form onto your base, you need to select the form by clicking on it, clicking on front, and then the move tool, and then when you see the arrows you can move your shape onto the base. Now from the front, if I look at my drawing and my sketch on my sheet, my shape is on the left hand side of my base, so that's fine. If we spin the view cube round to look onto the right or the left hand side, this shape gets in the way, so I'm actually going to move that shape out of the way. We can see that that is in the center of my base. If I don't want it in the center of the base, I can obviously select it and then move it to wherever I want it. And if I click on top view, you can see that I can now see that it's in this position on the base. The only view you can see on your sheet is from the front. So this is where your imagination comes into play. So if you've got objects which are in the foreground on your front view, then those need to be at the front of objects which are in the background. So for instance, if this shape was behind this shape slightly, then this shape would be on your drawing, and this shape would be in front of this shape here. So look at that from above. Click on that object, and then you can click on the move tool and you can move it into the position you want it to be in on the base. Try and spread your shapes out on the base as much as you can. Okay. Next thing to remember is once you've got your shapes onto the base, then you'll actually have part of the shape missing. So part of the shape will be pushed into the base. If I zoom in there, you can see that part of the shape is overlapping the base. Now, I don't want that to happen because it cuts off part of my shape. So I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to move it. And I'm going to move it up by 1 millimeter. The easiest way to do this is obviously to highlight that box, type in 1 and hit enter. And it should move the shape up by 1. So I'll do that again with the other shape, the other form. Type in 1, it will move up, hit enter. Try that again. Sorry, I need to move it up. There's gone. There you go, 1 millimeter. Please make sure you do that by 1 millimeter only, not less or no more. If it's slightly above, then what you'll end up with is with a gap like that, and your form will be floating and it won't 3D print properly. If it's pushed slightly into the surface, it doesn't matter too much, but you just lose the bottom of your shape. So please make sure that that is 1 millimeter. Okay, so you're moving your form onto the base and then up by 1 millimeter. Okay, all of your other forms should be created using either primitives. So obviously if you wanted a dome, which is called a hemisphere, you could obviously drag that onto the surface, but I'd drag it out onto the grid first. Type in your radius. So if you wanted something bigger, you can obviously type in the size of the radius, the distance from the center to the circumference, the outside of the dome, and then click. Once you've got that drawn, again, move it in place onto your base. So I want mine to be here. View from the front, move it up by 1 millimeter. No more, no less. Make sure that's accurate. And there we have it. If you want to draw cuboids, obviously you can use a rectangle tool, draw on the grid, view from the top, draw your rectangle or square the size that you want it, hit enter, select it, go to a home view, and then you can go to extrude on the little wheel, the cog, and pull it up. And then obviously you can make it however high you want it. Obviously refer to your drawing for all of your sizes. So what you're trying to do, you're trying to replicate one of your 3 final ideas. So when we look at your 3D model in 123D design, it should match up with the drawing, the sketch on your design sheet. So this block I've created, I can now edit that. So just to show you, I'm going to copy and paste that, and I'm going to move it out. I'm going to copy and paste it again. Obviously if you've got forms that are the same, you can copy and paste them. You don't have to draw them separately. Remember, E is for fillet, and what that does is round the edge off. So if I click on that, I can pull that edge. If I select E for edge and then hold down shift, I can select more than one edge at the same time, and then I kind of get this almost like a arch shape. If I press C, is for chamfer. I'll just copy and paste that first. Do that and just undo it. I don't want to do that. I'm going to select it, copy and paste it. Whoops. So if I make a mistake, I don't try and put it back in place. C for chamfer, select the edge. That cuts off the block. If I select C for chamfer and select more than one edge, and then pull it, then I'll get a more unusual shape. So you might be able to create some of your other shapes using those techniques. Okay, so for any cylinders, you can use the primitive cylinder, cone, wedge, prism, pyramid, and hemisphere as well. Just remember that you cannot have any overhangs of more than 45 degrees. Let me just show you with the loft. If I was to move this shape too far out, like this, and then select those three shapes, if I go to loft, this loft will not print. It will print to about here, where I'm pointing to, but anything over that, the plastic will not be printing onto anything. It'll be printing into thin air. So there won't be anything there. It'll just sag, and the plastic will droop and drop. So just make sure you don't create anything with an overhang of more than 45 degrees. So there you go. That's the first stages of building your Mars construction in 123D Design. In the next video, I'll show you how to add some details such as windows and doors.